All right, I'm going to do like 5-10 minutes of intro, get everyone to their introductions and everything, and then
Sure. Sounds great.
Okay. You whistle? We're getting started. Mom taught me that. Very cool party trick. All right, everyone. Welcome out to our developer meetup. Let's see. So I'm going to be on this screen apparently because this is the only way we know how to do our broadcast. Notably, Clifton, who normally does our AV, is not here tonight. So for those of you on the live stream, forgive a little bit of amateur hour here. My name is Dallin Harris. The place you are sitting in is Skyhook Interactive. We're a WordPress development shop, as you can see. A couple of housekeeping items. Wi-Fi is on the board if you'd like to get on that. Go crazy with it. I think we've got enough bandwidth. If it starts to lag, we may ask you to get off just so that the live stream doesn't get messed up. If you need to use the restrooms, they're down the hall near the atrium. There's food and drink in the back, so help yourself. What else? There's a sign-in sheet. You don't have to fill this out. This is only if you want us to email you about future events and other WordPress-related things. So I'm going to get that passing around here. We're always looking for feedback, so we will send out the other reason maybe to put your email address down is at the end of the event, we'll send out slides or any other resources that are mentioned and kind of notes to everyone. So if your name's on that list, you'll get that. And also, we solicit your feedback. I'm just going to mute that. Yeah. All right. Didn't work?
It's mute resistant.
Mute resistant. All right. So we're always looking for your feedback. We want to make this group good. I mean, the vision here is for this to be a really high-end WordPress development meetup, and we want to push you guys. If you're bored with the topics that we're giving or if they're over your heads, we need that kind of feedback so that we can make it better for everyone. So help us spread the word also. We've got a little bit more room in here, but we're filling up pretty good. But more the merrier, so invite your friends. I think that's about it. This is actually the last meetup of this year. We normally meet on the fourth Thursday, and next month that's on Thanksgiving, and in December it's on Christmas. So we're going to skip those 2 months, and we'll meet up again in January. But we're very excited about tonight's event. Is anyone aware of any other WordPress or other developer events in general that we should be made aware of?
CSS Day is on it's a Saturday. I think it's December 5th. Yeah.
Okay.
December 5th at Infusionsoft.
Great.
Lots of good talks and front-end stuff.
Okay, great.
He's made it for more developers that know a little bit about CSS but don't know the high-end stuff. So that's if you're a developer. Brad's a good friend of mine.
Great.
And he's putting it on. CSS IO.
Great. Any other events to mention? Okay. Want to give a shout out to our sponsor. So Rocket had carried us this far, and they've been a wonderful sponsor. There's some changes going on there, and they're rebranding. I can't remember the new name. Continue. What is it?
Iron Horse.
Iron Horse. And we're excited tonight to bring on a new sponsor, which is GoDaddy. They bought the pizza tonight, so we'd like to thank them. We've got a couple of representatives here, including our speaker. So couldn't have done this without GoDaddy tonight. Jake, do you have something you want to?
Sure, if I can take just 1 second. So there's some.
Here, come over here so you're on the lights.
Let's try and stay off. There's some water cups back there if you guys are interested in them. I'm Jake Plains from the GoDaddy Pro team. So we've launched a service called GoDaddy Pro. It's for developers and freelancers to manage their clients. You can do cool stuff like you don't have to manage usernames and passwords for your client. You can get into their accounts, buy stuff on their behalf, do all kinds of stuff like that. There's site monitoring and some other pretty cool stuff. So I'd love feedback on that, and we'd love to get you guys using that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so for those of you who haven't been here before, and a refresher for those who are, I'm going to outline our program real quick. So first, we're going to go around and do individual introductions, and tell us why you're here. But also, this is important for a later section. Tell us if there's something cool that you've discovered lately that you think would be worth sharing with the rest of the group. Don't necessarily go into the details, but just kind of talk about it. Or if there's something that you're struggling with, something you're needing help with, say that as well. I'm going to be taking notes as we go around and do those introductions. And then what happens is after the speaker, we have a guided discussion, and we focus our discussion on those things that were brought up. So your name, why you're here, anything cool you found recently, or anything that you're struggling with. And like I said, I'll take those notes. So we'll have our speaker, then we'll have our guided discussion, and then that's pretty much it. So without further ado, let's do the introductions. Jake, do you want to introduce yourself, and we'll just kind of zigzag around.
What were the items you wanted to cover?
Who you are, what brought you out, and if there's anything you're needing help with in the WordPress world.
All right. So Jake Plains, to be honest, I didn't really know that until Gabe mentioned it, and wanted to go out and support Adam, and been kind of playing around with a number of things in WordPress, built a few plugins for partners, and I don't have any specific problems right now that I can think of.
Yeah, I'm Jim Malcolm, a one-man work. I just bought Managed WP, and so far I like it. So I'm here to migrate my sites and get them over there.
Cool. Great.
My name is Michelle. I'm a strategic advisor. I deal with international schools in Africa, and I'd like to see if this can be implemented in some.
Great.
I'm Kevin Larson. I am one of 12 Infusionsoft certified developers, and I work with small businesses. 99.99% of those have WordPress, so I deal with that all day long.
Okay.
Fix their problems.
Anything you're struggling with that you want to learn, or anything you want to share? With us?
No, not really right now. Just looking to connect, maintain the currency, everything that's WordPress.
Okay, great.
My name is Michael Alexander. I'm developing WordPress, run my own business, developing WordPress. I don't really need help with anything. Eventually, I wouldn't mind doing a couple of talks on some plugins that I've done, some workflow stuff for WordPress, deploying and stuff like that. Some plugins that I've wrote to kind of manage that, kind of simplify some of that stuff. So it's just good to get out there and finally talk to some other people that do WordPress. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Michael?
I'm Earl Alexander, his brother. And I'm a junior web dev. I'm getting into, just learning what I can and following this guy around. Sometimes don't do it this way, do it this way. So really, I'm just here to see what I can learn.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Sabian Stevenson, and I do B2, I guess. I'm following my dad's footsteps and kind of being a part of his business and learning all the cool things about WordPress.
Great.
And we're back here. Ben Kaplan. I'm a web developer and run a small marketing agency. And I'm not looking for anything at the moment. Every time I come, I do say, deployment processes. That's something I'm interested in how people manage it.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Dave Ryan. I am a student at Arizona State and in user applications with the Institute for Nonprofit News. I think I'm here to learn tonight, and I don't think I have a problem.
Okay.
I'm Gabe. I will officially be starting here on Monday. I'm more involved with marketing and sales, but here to learn too. I actually just started my first WordPress website today, so hopefully I can learn something. Yeah,
great.
Okay, I'm Raquel, and I'm a partner at Meetup, a web design development agency, and I'm here to scout out any awesome devs that we could use. So yeah.
Great.
I'm not going to take it from you though.
So you're one of those companies that's hiring? My name's Maura Teal, and I am a WordPress developer. And I am not sure there's any questions today, but I did want to share a cool thing, which is the fact that the Arizona WordPress group has a Slack channel. So you can sign up, and if you don't know what Slack is, it is a spot that you can go and log in, and there's a bunch of available chat rooms. basically, I know it sounds really 90s to say it that way, but it's become very popular, and WordPress core uses it for their development as well. So if you join, we can share the link on the Meetup comments. You can join in, and a lot of us are on there and chat daily. So ask any questions or share any cool stuff.
I'm Mark Jorgensen. I'm here just really starting out with WordPress, and I have a lot of needs. The biggest one right now is I have a large website that I need to convert to WordPress, and I'm just dealing with that. So I'll be doing
Tell me your name again.
Pardon?
Your name again?
Your name?
Mark Jorgensen.
Okay.
So my name is Mitchell Jenkins, and I have 10 years of web design experience as a project manager. I was working with GoDaddy. So recently I switched over to a company called Rainmaker, which is down here in Gilbert. We're actually looking for a full-time web developer and a social media expert. So if you are one, or you have a friend, come see me afterwards.
That's not the Rainmaker plugin, right?
Rainmaker Institute.
I'm Christian, first time here. I've been an IT contractor and software dev for like the last 12 years or something. I've done a lot of work with WordPress and fixing up really bad installs and really bad plugins and showing people how the programs they are. And I'm just here to learn how to solve a lot of the problems with WordPress on a large scale.
I'm Andy Fragan. I'm a trauma surgeon, but I play WordPress. I happen to be down for a medical meeting, so Morris said to come because it was the same time. My only problem right now is just before the meeting, I kind of screwed up my local hosting bar, so I got to screw up that day something. So
Snapshots. Are you on PDB?
No. Desktop server. I'll just
okay.
spin up another one.
I'm Dennis Denhor. I've actually been a new Skyhook employee as well. That's right, next month. And so I'm a WordPress developer, a little bit more front end and back end, but a little bit of everything. I've recently found a new way to register custom post sites. It's through the site The Emergency, and you go in there and actually save the post types and all the attributes you want, and you put it in your functions file. It's a little bit more efficient than what I was doing before. That was kind of
My name is Crystal Gaskin, and this is my first time here. I just wanted to come out and meet community, get to know more people, and see what I do. I am a front end research agency.
My name is Theo Montana. I'm a developer, designer, I guess, of my own small business, but I'm just here to see things for the first time.
Pat Chang, real estate agent, and creating websites. Migrated my sites to the WordPress hosting for this year.
Orlando, I work at GoDaddy with Adam on the management WordPress product.
Hey, my name is Peter Mays. I run the WordPress product for GoDaddy.
Chris Kozlowski. I'm a code developer using digital downloads and another couple plugins I wrote. That's my full-time job. And if anyone has experience with payment gateways and testing payment gateways, I want to talk to you guys about this because I'm looking for ways to make my workflow much better. I'm dealing with payment gateways. Tough topic.
I'm Kelly Sharp. I do freelance work for WordPress, but I actually work at CloudSoft, and we do mainly what Alan does, but for Salesforce. And we're hiring. So if you or any of your friends or cousins or mothers or brothers needs a job, we're more interested in aptitude than we are technical knowledge. If you've got the aptitude, we'll teach you. And so it will be.
Great. Corey Crowley, senior professional developer at Skyhook. On time. I'm excited to be here and learn more about the managed WordPress component of GoDaddy.
And, anything, I'm always wanting to learn more things, better workflows. That I'm really trying to learn more about JavaScript and JavaScript workflows. So, inside WordPress. So, anybody wants to come back? My name is Justin Tucker. I'm not a staff employee. I know. I'm a freelance web developer, so we do the handle other were we doing questions?
Questions or something cool?
Okay. We have series with custom websites. We did from we did a read from a category to a subcategory to all posts within a custom post type always within the category. It was not
Okay. Kyle Mason, I'm a senior developer at Skyler. I am interested in a new product called WordPress. So if anybody used it,
What is it?
it's basically a database for it does files for all WordPress. Yes, it has WordPress with it.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
What's it called?
We can talk, but I won't know nothing.
Yeah.
We can figure it out.
Okay, is that everyone? Wonderful. Well, let me go ahead and introduce our speaker here tonight. This is Adam Sink, and I'm going to read what I wrote down because I don't want to mess this up. So Adam's here to talk to us about how they designed and grew the managed WordPress platform at GoDaddy, which is the largest managed WordPress platform in the world. And this is the team that built it. So we are super excited to hear this presentation. He's going to talk about best practices, pitfalls, lessons learned, and what the future is for the platform. So he's the development manager for the managed WordPress product at GoDaddy. He's a 12-year GoDaddy employee. He's worked on everything from racking servers to email to dedicated and shared hosting. Adam's a customer-focused and passionate advocate for WordPress, spreading the good word about the software that powers nearly a quarter of the web within GoDaddy, attends WordCamps to represent GoDaddy, and is an active member of the WordPress community. So without further ado, Adam Sink.
Hi. So yeah, thank you, Dallin. So my topic today is managing managed WordPress lessons learned on the road to becoming one of / the largest managed WordPress host. As I said, I'm Adam Sink, development manager for that didn't change. All right, cool. Development manager for managed WordPress. I've been at GoDaddy for 12 years. I like participating in endurance events. That might explain why I've been at GoDaddy for 12 years. My email's just async@godaddy.com, super easy. So first topic is things we learned usually the hard way. I like to say there's 3 ways to do things. There's the easy way, the hard way, and then there's the GoDaddy way, which is the hard way, but faster. So one of the first things we learned was what we call the Wu Tang Principle. Cream, cache rules everything around me. If you are going to pick out a cache, make sure that you pick a good one. You want something that's going to scale well and be performant. You also want it to be configurable and tuned easily. You're really going to want to invest in learning your caching mechanism. It's going to save you a lot of headaches. Most heavily trafficked sites need to be cacheable if you hope to have a large platform. And it's going to just save you a ton of stress and reduce a lot of stress on your web database storage tiers on the back end. Every hit that goes to your cache is a hit that you avoid cascading through into your web tier and then having to go through PHP, having to go through MySQL, if you have filers, having to go to them. So it's really important to cache as much as you can, as frequently as you can. When you're doing that, try to avoid doing a trade-off on cost if at all possible. It really comes back to haunt you later if you try to build something cheaper to save a little bit of money. It's better to kind of spend a little more upfront so that you get something that performs and scales well.
Adam, you said make sure things are cacheable. What are some things that when building sites that you keep in mind instead of these sites not cacheable?
So the major things that we see with that make a site not cacheable are sessions. Anything that has user-specific data will burst through the cache. We're going to try to serve, a static version of a page. So if there's any, user-specific sessions or cookies or anything like that, that'll tend to burst through cache because we need to make sure that we're getting the right thing for that user. So yeah, that's things like commerce sites. If you can just, until they log in, keep all of that stuff cacheable as much. It'll help your site perform a lot better. You'll be able to handle a lot more.
Handle what gets cached and what doesn't.
So we're using Varnish, and the reason we chose that one is because of the Varnish configuration language, the Vickle. It allows us a really high level of fidelity over what we're caching and what we're not caching. It's a C-like language, so we can really get into the nitty-gritty of how we're caching things, where we're caching them, why we're caching them, so we can do things like really ramp down the cache on, errors, 500 errors, 404s, those sorts of things, so that we're not caching those type of responses and are serving up valid, good content as much as possible.
So then do customers submit like a support request?
No, not for the most part. For the most part, even if it's not cached, it performs pretty well. The times that we have found other items that we need to cache, it's mostly been through monitoring the environment. We'll see things come up when we do that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, when I'm setting stuff up,
right?
And doing specific pages that interact with the user, that can't be cached.
Right.
How do you tell your platform that, yeah, you can't cache this page?
Right. So on ours, there is an argument you can pass that's no cache. If you set a session or a cookie, it won't cache it at all. So those sorts of things will prevent it from being cached. If you really want to make sure it's not cached, if you're logged in, you won't get served anything that's cached either, because you will have a session at that point. So cool. So yeah, again, the more you cache, the more traffic you can serve, the better performance you're going to get out of your platform. And when you're hosting thousands, tens of thousands, and then the hundreds of thousands of users, that becomes really readily apparent to you. You start noticing when things aren't caching really quickly. When you're in those kind of those multi-tenant environments, it's kind of feast or famine with resources, and making sure that you have a well-tuned cache is going to keep you on the right side of that equation. If your cache isn't, tuned properly, or you're serving up a lot of uncached content, you'll start seeing a lot of churn and a lot of difficulty, a lot of struggles in the other tiers. Yeah, so just try to avoid trade-offs if you can, as much as possible. That'll bring us to our next one, which we call the white glove principle. So when we first launched, we had this idea that we were going to be a white glove service. We had a team of 8 people, and it involved a lot of customer outreach, a lot of contacting people directly to talk about their sites, talk about, hey, we noticed you put your site on our platform, it's not cacheable, figuring out why, digging into it, talking to the customer, giving them hints on what they can do. They had our emails, they could contact us directly, and it worked pretty well for a time. And then they put us on the main landing page of GoDaddy.com, and that really ramped up a lot of onboarding, and then they lowered the price, and that ramped up the onboarding even more. So we found out that situation was untenable really, really quickly. At that point, we had enough people who had our direct contact information that we were just spending increasing amounts of time on dealing with just a small handful of our customers, a small handful of people. And we started turning into a very expensive support organization when we have our developers doing that, which was kind of foolish when we had an entire support organization already built inside of GoDaddy. So that ended up causing some difficulty. We had to spend a lot of time and enforce a lot of discipline in channeling people back into the support organization to get their questions answered rather than coming to us directly. We still had some people who would contact us, but it helped a lot. Ultimately, just trying to do that white glove level of support, we couldn't sustain it indefinitely with the rate that we were bringing people on. Oh, okay. It got us a lot of really great early feedback, which was nice. So that was really helpful and a lot of direct customer contact, and that was valuable for that reason. The problem was there was this expectation we could continue that forever, and we really needed to be more upfront and honest with ourselves about what our goals were and have a plan for transitioning that, or what we wanted to do once we got to a certain user threshold. We just didn't have that, and it caused us a lot of heartache and a lot of heartburn. I really feel like if we had spent the time early on to identify that and be upfront and honest with ourselves about what we were making and how many people we were hoping to bring on, we would have picked a different strategy for that. And our white glove wouldn't have looked like that by the end of the exercise. So I'll bring us to our next thing, which is knowing your limits. So some of our earliest plans had like really ridiculously high and or unlimited resources. And what we found out that there was a reason why no other managed host was doing that. And it was because if you give people unlimited resources, they're going to use them a lot more than you would expect. We had a few customers who were just using absolutely crazy amounts of bandwidth, absolutely crazy amounts of disk space. They were getting millions of hits a month, thousands a second. That said, it was a fraction of a % of our customers who were even getting anywhere close to their plan limits. But the ones who were hitting them or going over were going over by a lot. They were really beating it up. The reason was we had a couple sites go viral. One of them went viral on Facebook, and then we had a couple sites that were featured on a major network television program. The viral ones, there's not really a lot you can do about it. You can't really predict when something's going to go viral. You just have to have good monitoring in place, see that it's happening, and then react. The television ones were a lot nicer because they could go, hey, we're going to be on this show at this date, at this time, and we expect a burst of traffic. And so you could go look at their site and you could bring it up and you could say, hey, so I noticed that your landing page auto plays a video. That's probably not a good idea if you're expecting this big burst of traffic, and you might not want to do that. So that was really nice. We got to reach out to those customers and really help them with their launch strategy. Bandwidth wasn't really the only thing. We saw a lot of disk utilization growing quickly. In a few instances, it was actually legitimate content. We had a classic car site, just a ton of photographs of some really nice cars. Another one was it was skins for a Euro Truck Simulator game. Just tons of skins for these trucks in this game, and it was ridiculous. Each one of them was a gig or two, but just ballooned out like crazy. Yeah, it was ridiculous how big these skin packs were for this game. And he's still there. He's still around, like, using the product, but it's legit content. And then, but other than those people, what we started seeing was something very weird. We started seeing exponential growth on certain accounts. And it was really odd. We had to go into high alert and manually intervene on those. And what we found out on that was, yo, dog, backup plugins. That was the result of backup plugins. When we first launched, we had pretty much all of them blacklisted as they duplicated functionality of the platform. We provided 30 days of backups by default. That ended up kind of being a controversial decision, and we ended up having a long discussion with the community about it, and they were great, and they really reached out to us and engaged us, which was awesome. We were glad to have that conversation, and we backed off of that stance, and we started allowing backup plugins. The issue was that they can be misconfigured or set with bad defaults. So a lot of them out of the box would install with unlimited backups and backup multiple times a day, and there were we were starting to see certain issues with that. So what we ended up doing to fix that was we reached out to those developers, and we had a really great open dialogue with them and a really great communication. We said, hey, we're a really big shared host, really big managed WordPress host. Your backup plugin's popular on our platform. This is what we're seeing. These are kind of pain points. And they were really receptive to that discussion, which was great. I don't know that, even a few years ago, we would have had that conversation. I don't know that they would have been willing to talk to us or that we would have been able to talk to them in any meaningful way. So that was really an interesting conversation to have. We had several emails and we had Hangouts and we met some of them in person and we got to talk through it with them and ultimately get some changes made, which was cool. Most backup plugins are good. They will recognize their own snapshot directory and not back it up, which is very helpful, and they won't back up core. They'll avoid backing up things that they don't need to back up. There's a couple of them that just back up everything, and those ones are a little more problematic. They're troublesome. That said, the real problem comes when you have people who do multiple backup plugins. So that's when you get into a situation where I may have a backup plugin that's tuned and is very nice, and another backup plugin that is tuned and very nice, but they don't know about each other. So this one won't back up its own content directory, and this one won't back up its own content directory, but they'll start backing up each other's. And so you end up with this rapidly escalating issue of disk utilization. And we noticed it seems to start right around the time that they get to about a gig, that it really starts doing that nice logarithmic curve on usage of more than doubling every day. Because it's just, you know, it's like, okay, I'm going to back up your 10 gigs of backups and make a, you know, my 21 gig backup, and then you're going to back me up, and now it's going to be 30, you know, and they just start piling on. Yeah, we had somebody who got to 6 terabytes before we noticed. He just tumbled over himself, and it was like a one-day thing. Like, he did it in a day. He had it set up to back up every 4 hours, and they just did this on top of each other. And we didn't notice, and he hit that tipping point, and then he just spilled over top of himself. So yeah, that was when we learned disk space. It's a real thing. When we started, we had these big, huge filers, and they assured us, oh, you're never going to fill these up. You don't have to worry about it. It's not going to be a problem. And then, you know, I'm getting all of a sudden all these alerts and emails and people going, hey, so what are you doing? Because you filled the filer up. Don't do that. And yeah, that was when I found out SSDs aren't cheap. They're actually really, really expensive. Sure. So a filer is just a storage device. It's a dedicated storage device. So it's a separate machine that we then mount from the web servers and store off the content on there. Yes?
Is that like a SAN? Did you guys have lockup duplication enabled that might have mitigated that at least a little bit?
Yeah, so we didn't have that. There were a couple of configuration things we could have done to avoid it that were not done. Yeah, it was unfortunate.
It would have made it like less of a fire.
Yes, it would have made it less of a fire. There was a lot of stuff that we learned that we could have done to avoid shooting ourselves in the foot that we didn't do. Yeah, there were some fun conversations and some really fun meetings as a result of that, after action reports, all kinds of cool stuff. So yeah, that was our disk utilization fun with our backup plugins. Yeah, we ended up having to do a lot of outreach to customers on that to go, particularly the ones who were out of control, to go, hey, so we didn't turn your site off, but here's what you were doing and here's why it's bad. And we ended up disabling one or sometimes both of their backup plugins and going like, just figure this out and don't do that again. And for the most part, they were okay with it because they understood what happened. Yeah, it's yeah, the budgeting team still doesn't like hearing from me when I call them. They still kind of cringe. I can hear that like every time they pick up the phone. But it was a learning experience, so that was what was important. So that takes us to the next thing. This was the cause of most of our problems, was the Rumsfeld uncertainty principle. So Donald Rumsfeld famously talked about the 3 types of knowledge that you can have. There's known knowns. Those are the things that you know that you know. The things that you're reasonably sure about, they feel pretty secure on. There's the known unknowns. Those are the things you know you don't know. So you know to be on the lookout for them. You go, well, I don't know this, but I'm going to watch that. And then there's the unknown unknowns. Those are the cause of the majority of your problems. That backup plugin thing, that was one of those unknown unknowns. That really kind of bit us fast. The great thing about unknown unknowns is experience is going to clue you in on what those are really, really fast. When we first launched, we thought, hey, we're just going to scale this thing horizontally forever. As long as the cache and the proxy tier holds up, we're golden. What we started learning was that we didn't know about certain stuff. So in order to have the cache and the proxy tier and the web tier scale for everybody and serve everybody forever, the configs just started kind of doing this, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They were containing all the domains and then the aliases and the subdomains and the SSLs and the dedicated IPs, and they started kind of becoming this amorphous blob. And it wasn't a problem until we hit a tipping point. And it came on very suddenly. And what we noticed that was when we needed to reboot services or reboot a server, it started taking longer and longer and longer for that to happen because it had to reload all of that data. And the bigger it got, the longer it took. It seemed like it was fine up to a point, and then it kind of started doing this, and then it started to fall over, and then it fell over. So yeah, it started to become an increasing drag on our team and on our operations team. We were spending an awful lot of time dealing with it. We also started finding bugs in really weird places. We started finding bugs in Apache Traffic Server. We started finding bugs actually in glibc, which required kernel debugging to find that one. That was a fun one. Took us a long time to sort that one out. We contributed all that stuff back to the community, but what we were finding was we were just spending increasing amounts of time dealing with edge cases, and we were operating on the edges of the technology where no one else was, and probably also like the edge of sanity. It just wasn't a great idea to keep doing what we were doing. So what we did was we switched to a multi-cluster architecture. And what that's done for us is that's alleviated a lot of that strain. So now instead of a single thing scaling horizontally forever, we have a single thing that can scale horizontally for a good long time. And then we know when we're getting close to a point where it's okay, we know we need to spin up another cluster at this point to continue serving our customers well, continue to be performant, and not put ourselves in that position again. Ultimately, it was kind of a painful exercise, but it was a good one to go through because we're set up in a much better position for future growth. Sure.
Is it more or less like sort of aggressive sharding at certain thresholds for groups of customers?
Yeah, so it's knowing essentially like at customer count X, we know that we're probably going to start seeing problems. So we set a threshold prior to that. And then when we get to that count, we go, all right, cool. Let's order new hardware, land it in time so that we can get people onto the new cluster before this one starts having issues. And then you start seeing natural attrition on the older clusters, so it alleviates some of that strain. So you can get almost right up to the edge of that, and then it'll start bleeding off.
Is it a really sudden crash once you get to that point?
Yeah, we found it was almost a really sharp cliff. Like it was not gradual. It wasn't like, oh, it's kind of starting to be bad. It's more like, oh, it's starting to fall over. It fell over.
You're worried about those kind of like race conditions that just don't show up in certain environments like that?
No, so most of them were the result of needing to load the configuration data for, hundreds of thousands of sites. ATS is just not really set up to do that. Nobody's using ATS with that many sites on it. So it'll load it just fine until you get to a certain point, and then it started running into like thread collisions and other problems, and it just it started going, I can't do this, I don't know what to do with my hand, and then that was it. Like it just gave up. So it started getting really painful. And we actually had like the Apache Foundation people working with us on it at Apache Conf. Like they were sitting there helping us debug it and figure out what was going on. And they were going, wow, this is really weird stuff you guys are doing. Like nobody else is doing this. And that was when we were like, okay, we may have gone mad scientist mode. It's probably time to stop doing that. Yeah, so that was when we knew it was time to stop. But now we're in a much better position for future growth. And then sometimes you just see stuff where you go, wow, that's messed up. Architecture's hard. Writing software is hard. You need to be really willing to do constant reevaluation, constant refactoring, constant retooling of old code. In our case, one of those things that's like that is our object cache layer. It's good. It's not great. It could be a lot better. So we're in the process of replacing it right now. And that was one of those, results of monitoring our environment and partnering with operations and our support staff. And they came to us with, hey, so here's what we're seeing, here's why it's a problem, and here's the data to back it up. And so that was one of those cases where we had to defend our decisions, but at the same time, honestly reevaluate and deal with the reality that in retrospect, we could have made a better choice there. That having those discussions in a large corporation or in a company like GoDaddy requires being honest with yourself and then being honest with your stakeholders and your leadership. No one really likes going in front of your leaders in the budget committee and saying like, hey, I need X chunk of time to fix this thing, or I need X chunk of budget to address this and get more hardware. But you have to be willing to do it when it's the right thing. You have to go in there and go, hey, so this is the right thing to do. Here's why we need to do it. And if you messed up, to be honest and go like, hey, we're doing this because of these reasons. You know, we didn't make a right decision here, or, you know, we didn't know about this. So if you can do that, it's not that the conversations are easier, but I don't know. I guess I would say it's not that the conversations are more fun, it's that they're easier. At least you're being honest with everybody about what's going on. So yeah, and then there are times when we just were getting feedback from the community where they would say, hey, you know, this thing that you're doing, we don't like it, or this thing that you're doing, we hate it. And there need to be channels for that, and you need to be receptive to that feedback. A lot of times it can be kind of vitriolic and sudden, but when you engage them, you'll find a lot of that kind of anger or initial outburst tapers off, and you have a much more productive, open discussion with the community about what you're doing. So a couple instances of that were, like I said, our backup, our policy of blacklisting backup plugins. That was just a wrong decision on our part, and we had to go out and we defended it at first, and we said, here's why we did it. And people said, well, here's why it's not a good decision. And we had to take that feedback and go, okay, you're right, and reverse ourselves on that and go, we listened to you. Thank you for the feedback. We've changed that. Another one was when we auto-installed Sidekick on everybody retroactively. They did not appreciate that, and we heard a lot about it. We said, okay, cool, we disabled it for you. It's not a thing anymore, and we're sorry. We just, yeah, it was one of those cases we just didn't give them notice, and we should have, and that was a bad move on our part. So we had to do a mea culpa and go, hey, you know what? You were right. We shouldn't have done that, and that was bad on our part. If you try to hide it, like, people are much more upset about it. So feedback from the community is really important, and we love that engagement that we're getting now. Like I said, even a few years ago, I don't think GoDaddy would have had that kind of rapport with the community. I don't think we would have gotten that feedback. So it's been good to have. All right, so that's kind of look at what the stuff was that we had hardships with or that were difficult. So now I want to kind of take a little time to discuss the things that we did right, or the things that really helped us. So our first item was we focused on performance as a feature. Very early on, we decided that we wanted performance to be a feature. We didn't see the reason in standing up a managed WordPress solution if all it was going to do was perform as well or slightly better than a shared hosting environment or a VPS or even just a single dedicated server. We wanted a best-in-breed solution with good hardware, so we opted for really powerful / expensive servers with SSDs, which, as we learned earlier, are very expensive, and we filled them up. We focused on caching and optimizing so we could compete with major contenders in the space. That was what we had heard a lot of, and from our own research was very important, caching and optimization at all the different tiers. So once everything was set up, we had the hardware landed, it was cached and optimized. To make sure everything was running the way that it needed to be, we had to build tools for monitoring the environment and deploy tools for monitoring the environment. That allowed us to know when something wasn't performing as it should or was about to enter like a death spiral because it was failing. which was very, very helpful for us. Hardware sometimes fails, software has bugs, sometimes services need to be rebooted. If your monitoring is set up right, it will let you know about that ahead of time, or it can actually automatically remediate it for you, which saves you a ton of time and a ton of headaches dealing with it yourself. A good monitoring system is going to do a lot of time and a lot of heartache, and it's going to make things a lot easier for your operations teams as well. Monitoring allowed us to be really, really proactive and head off problems before they became problems. It led to us being aware of when we had customers who were getting a lot of traffic spikes and they weren't able to be cached, so that we could reach out to them and go, hey, your site's going viral and it's not cacheable and we need to fix it. It led to a better experience for us as a host. It led to a better experience for the customer because they say, hey, GoDaddy's engaged. They care about my site. They're monitoring it. And they're letting me know what I need to do so that my site stays up and it stays fast. Because everybody likes fast stuff. Nobody likes slow sites. Side effect of all the monitoring that we did was reliability. If you're making sure things are working well and working quickly, you are making sure that they're working. So that is a real benefit. Downtime is awful. Nobody likes it. I hate downtime. Monitors gave us that insight ahead of time to go, hey, we know there is a problem and we're going to head it off before it becomes a critical problem. But then there were times when knowing about a problem only did so much. So we said, all right, if we know there's going to be a problem and there's not much we can do about it, we want to have a redundant architecture. So in things like the caching tier and the proxy tier and the web tier, if a single node fails or a single server has an issue, it should not cause an issue for the platform. The remaining servers need to be able to handle the redistributed load and stay up, even if it's just for as long as it takes you to stand back up whatever server is sick or having a problem. Failover needs to happen seamlessly. It needs to happen quickly. It needs to happen quietly. We designed our tiers so that any single server can just be pulled out of rotation. The remaining boxes will stay up, continue to serve traffic. And we worked with our 24/7 operations department on operationalizing things like server builds and remediation so that at any time of day, we can respond quickly to any failure. So if a box just straight up dies, the hardware blows up on it, it catches on fire, someone spills a Coke into it, they can build us a new one, they can rack it, they can get everything back up and working the way it's supposed to be. That's why they don't let you have drinks in the data center anyway, too.
Did you guys build anything like a Chaos Monkey, like on Netflix, where it just randomly kills stuff and see?
So we have enough customers that they're the Chaos Monkey. We didn't need to build it. So when you're like dealing with hundreds of thousands of customers, those like random one-off things that don't really happen very often happen all the time. So yeah, like in a shared hosting environment, just like it's Chaos Monkey all day, every day. We don't ever have that issue. It's just stuff is constantly in this weird state of like, oh, okay, okay. And so yeah, we had the benefit of that. We didn't really need to build it. We have a couple systems that'll kind of probe and check things, but yeah, nothing that'll just deliberately kill an item, at least not in production. We have stuff like that in dev test, but yeah, not in the prod system. We have a couple customers who I could probably point to their domains as Chaos Monkey. So, so yeah, did all of that pay off? Third-party evaluation results. So this is a chart from a review signal test of our service. Our results are in blue. Industry gray is average. It's time and seconds to perform the operations they were doing. Lower is better. So we're beating the industry average, and we're doing it at, our entry-level price point is $5 a month as opposed to like $40 on some other services. So pretty cool. There's a couple other review signal reviews up here as well. There was one done in July of this year and November of last year. So one of the interesting things to note is in the one from July of this year, they changed the way that they were doing their load testing on it. They're using a software called Blitz.io. And what Blitz.io does is it very quickly ramps up to a number of connections per second on your site. It does all that through a single IP. Well, we had DDoS remediation controls in place on our platform, so this traffic started coming in. It looked super suspicious, so we cut it off, and our score suffered as a result on that. We're still actually equivalent with a lot of the other hosts, but we're not as good as we could be on that one. And that was just strictly because we built a system to protect ourselves that ended up protecting us from that and dinging our score a little bit.
Did they give you any heads up that they were going to do a test?
Yeah, they did, but they didn't tell us they were changing the rate at which they were running the Blitz.io test. So the previous test, it had worked fine. So we were like, cool. And then afterwards, they're like, oh yeah, we got like double or triple the number of errors we had last time. By the way, we doubled or tripled like the number of connections through Blitz.io. And I was like, well, that seems like a problem. Okay. So yeah, if you factor that into account, we're still in the top tier, up with the top tier, the top three. But you know, I won't lie, on that one, the picture is a little bleaker than it was on that one. But hopefully, you know, we've remediated. So the next time they run it, we should just be like, hey, cool, do whatever you want. Just let us know when you're going to do it so we can.
Do you have to know their IP first, or you just like temporary whitelist because they're pointed out?
We need to, so we could do it either way. It's helpful for us to know the IP, just so if anyone else is running a Blitz.io test that they're not telling us about, that we can have that whitelisted. So yeah, we've got some of them, but we need to, we're going to work with them next time as well to be like, hey, so are you going to run this again, and let us know so that we can just try to keep an eye on things to make sure that you're not hitting any of our protections that we have for DDoS. All right. So after the third-party review, another thing we did was we adopted an API-first methodology. Outside of our actual platform, this has been kind of one of our big things that has driven our system. There were a couple reasons that we decided to do API first. One was the API serves as the gatekeeper for our entire system. So the way to perform any operation to any site is via the API. So what that gets us is a single place for all of our business logic to live, and a single point of control for anything that happens in the system. Anything that you want to do to a site on our system has to go through the API. If there's bugs, we have a starting point to look for them. We go, okay, cool. We know the API call you made. Let's start drilling down and see where it is in the system. It gives us a very direct flow to determine where any of those issues are coming from. It gives us a place to sanitize inputs and provide instantaneous feedback to somebody calling us to say, okay, so here's what you were trying to do, and here's why it didn't work. I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so we can basically say, hey, you passed this bad data, or you called something that doesn't exist, or you called something that's unsupported, and you can't do that. So it allows us to really standardize our errors too, so that people, when they get an error message back from us, they can count on it being in a certain format. It also exposes all of our functionality to all of our other business units. And that's been helpful because it allows any other part of our company to consume our API and build something around it. So customers have a dashboard. Our support staff has their own dashboard, and then our pros can have their own dashboard. So it's going to support multiple expressions of the application. Anyone who's developing against our platform can decide what they want to show to their end user and build a custom interface for them. So it really allows a nice degree of control around that. So integration occurs at the API level for everyone who's using us. And it saves us time coming up with solutions for everyone. We can point them at the API and go, hey, here's the API. Does it do what you need it to do? And if it doesn't do what you need it to do, let us know. Once we've updated the API to perform the new action or support the new functionality they want, when we deploy it, it goes out to everyone simultaneously. All of our end users get access to it at the exact same time. And that's been really great. It allows essentially us to give functionality to people they may not have even know they needed. We can just go, hey, we updated the API, we added these functions to it, and you can do this now. And it's been really great for the other units in the business that use it. It's been a really powerful way of getting things done. API first design is really driving a lot of thinking at GoDaddy going forward. It's starting to become a corporate initiative for us. I'm kind of excited to see how we're going to grow that and move forward with it. I think we're going to start probably, with servers, which is the Assured, our cloud servers product, they actually have a customer-facing API for the first time, which is a really cool thing. It's really neat to integrate with and play with. One of the other things that we did that was a large transformation for us as a company was we adopted Agile. Agile's meant a number of things for us. Number one is a willingness to adapt quickly. We're not as dogmatic in our thinking as we used to be. Previously, we had a really inflexible set of solutions that we applied to everything. We just had a cookie cutter, and it was, okay, this is your site, this is your shared hosting site, this is what you're going to get, that's going to be your solution. Agile empowered our engineers and our developers to challenge the way we've been doing things. We didn't always get our way in those early conversations, but for the first time, we actually started having those conversations. So we started going to leadership, and we started going to the steering committees and going, hey, here's what we want to do, and here's why we think it's a good idea. And as we worked with Agile and as we grew in our usage of it, we started to see those attitudes changing. There was increasing willingness among our stakeholders to try new things. We began to see failing quickly, failing fast, not as a problem, but as a potential solution to problems. Previously, if you failed, everybody tried to play the blame game where they all tried to avoid or assign blame. Instead, now we have a much more healthy process of where we say, hey, why did we do this? Why didn't it work? Can we make it work? And what are our next steps? Instead of just going like, well, we did the thing and it broke. And so now we actually have a much better process in place. We don't have to waste a lot of time on arguments anymore. We can just kind of move forward in a proactive fashion. It's really been transformative. We still have our processes, but now we're valuing results over those processes. And if processes are getting in the way of us achieving our goals, we get to reevaluate them and go, does this process have value? Why are we doing it? And if it still has value, we go, okay, well, we're doing this the wrong way then. We need to integrate the process in. Or we can go, no, that process doesn't have value in this instance. So let's toss it aside and do something different. Let's adapt, let's learn, and move forward. It's increased our sense of ownership across our team. We have shared ownership. Before, there was a tendency of people to say, I'm the guy who does X. I am the guy who works on the shared hosting control panel. I'm the guy who's the Apache guy. And X was always just the subset of functionality within the organization as a whole. Now what we have is we have experts who are still experts in certain areas. You're always going to have people who are better with certain technologies than others, but we have people who are willing to jump in and experiment with new technologies or learn working with other people. There's a culture of this collaboration and shared ownership that we have now that we didn't have, and we're working on products and we're working as a department instead of as, the control panel guy, as an adversarial relationship where somebody comes to you with something and you're like, well, that's going to be a bunch of work for me and I don't want to do it. Yeah, so we have a much healthier relationship and it's much easier to communicate with people. And because we're Agile, we can go, okay, cool, well, here's how that interrupts my sprint, or here's what that does to my workflow, and let's talk about it and figure out how we can make this happen. Yeah, so I'm not gonna lie, sometimes that means we struggle a bit because there are still those experts and there are still people who are like, I wanna work on it. That thing that you talked about, and I'm gonna kind of muddle my way through it because I don't really know as well as this other guy, but we come out the other side stronger. It also has eliminated the city bus points of failure where if somebody gets hit by a bus, we would go, oh, that is terrible. Nobody knows what he knew. And now we're in a lot of trouble. So I guess we better figure this out. So there's a lot less panic. We've actually had people who've taken some really long vacations this year and it's caused no problem and no interruption to the work. We're just like, okay, cool. Like have fun, go on your really long extended 4-week vacation, and we'll see you on the other side, which has been awesome because I like taking vacation. So, and before there were times it was really hard because they'd call you. They'd just be like, hey, something broke. And you're like, I'm on a beach. So yeah, I'm glad not to have to lug laptops around when I go places now. And then finally, the big thing, one of the big things for us is we made unit tests part of our definition of done. When we are doing our code, we have a definition of done, and if you write or refactor code, you need to have a unit test written around it. When we first started, we broke things a lot. We were failing fast and iterating very quickly. But once we started adopting unit tests as a lifestyle and a way of doing development and a way of moving forward, we started seeing defect rates on existing functionality drop whenever we deployed code changes or refactors. We weren't having those impacts we were having before, where we changed something and it broke something else. The unit test would alert us ahead of time, and we go, oh, okay, cool, I didn't do that right. It allowed developers to go in and do their own QA and reduce those defect rates. We used to have 1 to 2 bugs a week as a result of those changes, and now it's 1 or 2 a month, if that. It's been really transformative for us as an organization. Some of it, I'm not gonna lie, is just due to the product being more mature. It's been around for 1.5 years now. It's more stable. But a lot of that is also due to unit testing. It's had a huge impact on how we work and on product quality. So if you're not doing it, I really recommend doing it. If you are doing it, do more of it. It's really great. I'm a huge proponent of unit testing as a process. And then there's Dilbert talking about Agile. So yeah, the next thing is kind of, what does being big mean to us as a company? GoDaddy's huge, right? Like, we're a big company. We're kind of the giant on the playground that's stumbling around. And so what does that mean? And how does that size impact the way that we have to work or the way that we do things? You get some definite advantages from being big, and I'm not gonna lie about them. One is you get economies of scale. We can move massive amounts of hardware into place and land it super quickly. We've got data centers all over the world in a lot of different places, and we get resources we need more or less when we need them. So that gives us the ability to enter markets really, really quickly. Having deep pockets has solved a ton of problems for us, and it opens a lot of opportunities. We don't need to go secure funding. We don't have to deal with VCs. We just pick a target and start moving towards it. Just being big removes obstacles out of your way. You can kind of just crush them most of the time and go for it. Because we are big and we've been in hosting for a long time, we also got a lot of experts available. We don't really ever have to go out and learn anything from scratch. Most of the time, if we want to know something, there's an expert in the company or an entire team of experts available for us to go ask. So if we want to know something like, hey, how do we scale ATS? We can go find a team that knows that, and they can go, oh, well, here's these things. And that worked right up until we hit those weird edge cases. And we have MySQL experts, we've got storage experts, we've got all of those people in-house. And the thing is, if we don't have them in-house, we can find someone who can get us the answers that we need. So it removes a lot of that heartburn and thrash of that feeling of floundering or going like, oh man, I need to learn this new thing and I need to become an expert in it in like a week. How am I going to do that? We can just go find an expert on it and they can tell us what to do. In the cases where you can find them. As I said with the ATS issue, we went to the experts and they didn't know what we were doing. So that was terrifying. That was when we got to experience that ourselves. The other thing it gets us is an established customer base. We don't ever have to go out and find customers. There's always a pool of people who are willing and ready to try out whatever new thing that we've come up with. We get fast feedback as a result of that. We don't really have to put a lot of legwork into going out and finding customers. That said, we do some of that. When we launched Managed WordPress, we did it at WordCamp Phoenix in 2014. And we knew that was the market we wanted to go after. We knew those were the type of developers that we wanted, or the type of developers, the type of web professionals that we wanted to have on board our product to get us the type of feedback that we desired. So we went out and we did that. What we found out was we started onboarding other people that we didn't expect, though. We were getting a lot of SMBs. We were getting a lot of people who maybe weren't experts. We got a lot of kind of newbies to it who were asking us a lot of questions about, well, what's this? What does this do? How do I make this work? So we weren't necessarily always getting the people that we thought we were going to get on it. And then, as I said, once they placed us on the landing page, and then once they changed the price, that really continued to grow as a difference in our user base. We started seeing a lot more of kind of a intermediate, I guess I'd say novice to intermediate users as opposed to advanced users, who we thought was going to be our market. It turned out that a lot of people wanted to use it because it was fast and it solved a need. And so we were getting a lot of feedback from those people as a result of that, and it was good feedback to have. So yeah, that fast feedback was great. Not all of it was useful. Because we were onboarding people more quickly than we expected, we started to get we started to experience problems with our signal to noise. Because we launched it as an MVP, a minimum viable product, we launched with a subset of functionality that we knew we would eventually need. So we started getting a lot of calls from people for things like, hey, we need staging. And we're like, well, yeah, staging's on the list. We're going to get to it. But right now we got to land a bunch more servers to deal with all of the people who are coming onto the platform. So we started running into issues of managing the users and giving them that white glove experience that we thought we were trying to do, scaling at a really much more rapid pace than we thought we were going to have to, and then trying to build out those new features that people need. So we started spending a lot of time just context shifting and then trying to dig through that haystack of user feedback to pull out the one or two needles of stuff that wasn't either something we already planned, something we knew about, the feedback that was really valuable to us. We were growing extremely quickly. And when we launched, since we are so big, it made a lot of the other people in the space justifiably nervous. They were thinking, well, why are they coming into the space? What are they going to do? So everybody started kind of watching us. And because we were onboarding people so quickly and we had a subset of functionality and we were trying to build out our platform as fast as we were trying to do it, we stumbled a couple of times. We had a couple of issues, and the other people, the other companies were only too happy to go. Those guys don't know what they're doing. They can't compete in a managed space. They just know shared hosting. Managed is a totally different breed of customers, and you shouldn't go to them for that. We had a big target on our back, and people were only too happy to take advantage of that. And to be honest, to an outsider, it looked like we were stumbling and we were having issues. And honestly, we were, but it wasn't for the reasons that people thought that we were. We understood the technology. We understood how to implement it. We were just having to divide our attention between landing hardware, building features, and giving that customer support experience that we thought we were wanting to give everyone. So we were torn in 3 different directions. Yeah, it was really challenging too as we started bumping into those other things I talked about, those unknown unknowns, those things that we didn't know about, those issues that we started running into as we scaled. Ultimately, we overcame all those problems. It was a really arduous process, but it made us better and stronger as a result. We understand where our limitations are a little better. I think we've been through a lot of things that other companies haven't even seen or dreamed of at this point. So knowing that, finally, there's the matter of pivoting. When you're a large company, pivoting's hard. We've got the size and the resources to enter new markets, but changing the direction or getting buy-in to make that happen is difficult. We found what we were doing was we were having to go to leadership, we're having to go to stakeholders, and we were having to say, hey, trust us, we're going to make this big bet. and it's in a space that we haven't traditionally been in before, but it's gonna work out. And with us being the size that we are and being a big company, they expected, you know, immediate payouts from this kind of stuff. They didn't want to have to sit there and grow it for a long period of time. So under those constraints, growing in a controlled kind of organic fashion becomes very difficult. You really have to make sure that you're explaining to people why you're doing things, the reasons that you're doing them, and the reasons why you think it'll work. Using new technologies can be seen as risky a lot of times too in a big company. They can go, hey, we've already got experts who know about this. Why do you want to use this other thing? You know, why do you want to go out and build bunch when we already have people who know this other solution? And we go, well, we think it's the right thing to do. And a lot of times we were arguing these changes that we made that we thought were the right thing or we thought were good changes, but with an incomplete set of data. We were saying, hey, this is the right thing to do for us. You just have to trust us on it. And that was where Agile kind of really helped us out on those conversations as well. Nobody wants a new product to flop. It looks bad for the company, and we had to get buy-in from everybody to move outside of our comfort zone. We're a shared hosting provider. Managed WordPress is a premium product with a premium market. And that wasn't really anywhere where we had competed before. So we got buy-in, but there was a process there to get it. It wasn't one of those things where we moved super quickly on that. And again, that was just a result of being a large company. So that said, Kodos, looking forward, not backward, upward, not forward, and twirling, twirling, twirling towards freedom. The new hotness, the stuff that we have that's coming up. More international DCs. We just launched into Amsterdam earlier this month. We're going to look at moving into some additional international data centers. The United States is still our biggest market. It's still our most important market, but there are a lot of underserved markets in other parts of the world. And we kind of want to bring more goodness to those people, get them solutions that are closer to home. That latency from the hop across the pond is a killer for a lot of our users. So anything that we can do to reduce or get rid of that is a huge boon for them. I talked earlier about our object cache not necessarily being the best solution. We are working on Redis. That is going to be our replacement. We've seen some really great things out of that. We are looking forward to rolling that out to the entire environment. Yes?
What was your other solution?
It was an APC solution, alternative PHP cache, and not the greatest one. It worked when we launched, and it was fine for a time, but it's time to replace it. Yeah, Redis is going to get us the ability to get away from some tech that's not really aging very gracefully. It ties you to I think, PHP 5.4, and I know that WordPress as a whole is wanting to move people beyond that. Again, Redis will allow us to do PHP 7, which we're starting to see some chatter about in the community, and we're seeing some really impressive performance profiling on that for running WordPress sites. I think it's been twice as fast on a lot of the test sites that they've run it against. So we're really looking forward to getting that rolled out as an option to people so that they can start using that and experiencing it. Once we get that, also in addition to that, we want to do more tools for pros. We have a good SMB experience. We've got a good onboarding experience for users. We want to build out more tools for our pro users, for our resellers, so that they can have an easier time managing all of the sites under their portfolio. And then more to come after that. You know, there's going to be a lot. This is all kind of short to midterm stuff that we're working on, but we're committed to the product. We're committed to the space. We're going to keep growing it and keep moving forward.
For your international data centers, do you have to deploy specifically to those?
Yes. So you have to deploy you have to land hardware there, and then sometimes there's laws and constraints around them as well. China is one of the ones where it's really difficult to get in there. It just depends on where you're going. Like, depending on the country that you're going to, there's different laws and requirements that you have to adhere to.
But I mean, like for a customer, do they have to choose?
So no, that's all kind of determined right now by they self-identify their region and their language. In the future, they will be able to select. So you may be like, hey, I know I'm in England, but I'm serving customers who are in, you know, America, and so I want to choose an American data center, or, you know. So yeah, at some point, we'd like to get the ability to kind of let users have more control over that. But right now, it's kind of just like, hey, we got a rough idea where you are. So. All right. That brings me to the end of my prepared slides. Does anyone have questions that they'd like to ask? Yeah.
Well, I guess, what are some of the characteristics of like a dream user? Guys, not like a small business, but like someone who is at scale. What are some of the characteristics on their sites or umbrella that would be successful?
So their landing page should be cacheable. That's like our big thing. The more cacheable they are, the better. Use good plugins and themes, well-supported, well-maintained plugins and themes. So we've had a couple people who were large users who were using suboptimal themes and plugins, and they started having a lot of issues just with the number of queries they were issuing against the database and the number of file operations they were doing. Make sure that you're using well-supported, well-maintained plugins, well-supported, well-maintained themes. Yeah, just be mindful of what you're doing. Be mindful of how chatty your site is with the database. Yeah. Yeah, don't have a 20-page image on your front page. Don't have a video that auto loads on your front page and starts playing. Like, yeah.
I noticed a lot of the cache plugins are not downloaded.
Mm-hmm. That's because they we have them blacklisted because we already have varnish cache. Some of them interfere with the functioning of varnish cache and actually break it, and they perform worse. We haven't found one on our platform yet that performs better than our caching tier.
Did you mention CDNs or what your plan is on image?
Yeah, so we don't have a CDN solution currently. I don't think organizationally we have a CDN solution, do we?
There are different things that we have in play that I know we've talked about adding for customers to use. It's not something traditional that I've heard a lot of requests for.
Right.
If you guys are interested, I'd love to talk about it and get you guys in contact.
Yeah, we're moving on like the international data centers to get people closer to home. But yeah, CDNs, we don't really, CDNs are one of those things where we will want a solution that serves every customer, not just managed WordPress. We want it to serve our shared hosting, our virtual, our VPS, our dedicated hosting customers as well. So it's not one of those ones that I personally have looked at too much or worked with.
If you guys were going to do a CDN partner with someone like Akamai, or would you guys try to build your own and reinvent the wheel?
Potentially, yeah. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that question.
So the options we're looking at now are partnering.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I figured it's a huge.
Right. It's just one of those things where it doesn't make a lot of sense to buy that many data centers and have that many data centers, and then renting space and then becomes expensive. It's much, in some ways, it makes more sense to let somebody else deal with that headache.
On one of your slides earlier, you were talking about how support doesn't scale very well.
Yeah, our white glove support with 8 developers didn't scale very well.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of your competitors. I mean, that's what they're going to differentiate on.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's your support strategy going forward, and how do you?
I'm going to defer to Gabe on that one. What is our support strategy going forward?
For the Pro program, we have a Pro support. Right now, we're training more agents to be specifically WordPress trained, as our managed WordPress solution just goes straight up. So we have hundreds of thousands of managed WordPress customers, but millions of WordPress customers across all platforms. So we're investing a lot in training those teams for that, because WordPress is a very unique skill set in troubleshooting what's going wrong with the site. So that's a very good kind of risk in that.
Well, I think the scalability you're talking about isn't supporting the product, it's
Right.
having the developer who's writing the code for the platform supporting the
Right.
product. If I hit a WP engine, I'm not going to talk to the developer.
Right.
The issue there was there were customers who had the developer's email. They weren't going to the support chain. They weren't calling in. They weren't doing the email support. They were literally just emailing the developer.
And Chris knows because he got to watch me do it.
And
So.
I got a lot of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. We spend, at least when I was there, I remember days where I spent 2 hours tracking down and issuing a theme.
Yep.
That's it. So, and the funny thing, it's a commercial theme. Like, people pay money for the theme and just thrashing the site. So, but, you know, so not only did they pay us like $5 for a month for that account, I spent 2 hours of my time trying to debug something they paid for too. So it doesn't scale at all.
You can only do so many 16 hour days.
Yeah.
Before you're like, hey, I love you, but you gotta help support it.
Yeah. And one other thing on that, so being the scale that we are, like we've got a bunch of SMBs and end users that are contacting us. So we've gotten a lot of feedback from professionals or developers that our support sucks. Well, it's because it's the wrong type of support. So part of the pro program, like we've made a big effort to connect the web developers, designers with people that understand what they're doing so that they can get issues fixed much quicker. That's a big part of the program, is connecting you to like tier 2 support, so that you're not going back and forth with like sales conversations. It's, here's my issue, please help me. And if it's something with the platform, getting it up to engineering as quick as possible so that your sites get back up online.
So people in this room would want to be in the pro program and
yeah, probably
get that different support channel. And
yep.
So it's godaddy.com/pro. GoDaddy.pro will also redirect you. And seriously, like the cool part about that program, even if you call the regular GoDaddy.com phone number, we reroute you to the advanced technical support group. So it's like no BS. It's who you want to be talking to within the company.
And this is different than the reseller program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a self-identified like program, right? You have to self-identify as a pro and sign up.
And how much does that cost?
It's free.
Oh, it's just
free.
Yeah, it's just it's self-identify so that we can help solve your problems better. Yes.
Thought process of pricing structure. Because you've got this like 5 for one side, and then you've got this one pricing for 5 sides, and then you've got this other pricing structure for 25.
Right.
Great question. So when we originally launched, we were thinking about the small business as our core customer. What we're doing right now, we're working with Jake's team. They have some plans for small businesses and different plans and features for pros. Because like pros have different needs, right? That's what we're actually working on now to figure out what features are for pros kind of making packages that kind of level down those, but also to add individual sites at that same level so you have to buy these packages. Right? So that's kind of what we're now researching it now, and we'll see something. It's going to change a bit. Oh, it'll change a lot. There'll be different plans growing. On the small business, there'll be plans for small businesses. On the pro side, there'll be, as part of the pro program, plans for pros.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more a la carte, like the ability to add individual sites or packs of individual sites to your plan so that you can kind of define your own goal. Because like 25 sites isn't right for everybody, right? You don't necessarily go from needing, 5 or 6 to 25. So.
Well, on 1 to 5, sometimes you need to.
Right.
And I'm here every month, so if you have ideas, like, let me know. We're talking to people right now, so I want to know what you guys think.
Are you guys gonna have on your roadmap a white label thing like you have on your reseller? So, if you got a pro, who wants to resell, manage hosting, and they can white label that and then, let you guys deal with some of the billing issues, but, have some control over the pricing and whatnot, like the reseller program.
So you're kind of asking for a mix of the reseller and the pro program?
Yeah. So like reseller program, you can white label your own portal, and you can control the pricing, and you can you direct all your customers there, and they sign up, and it looks like you, but then GoDaddy's handling all the credit card transactions and failed payments and all that kind of stuff that you don't want to deal with.
Right.
And so with this managed thing, if I've got people coming in, I'm an influencer, I can get more value out of them, but I don't want to have to buy a package of 25 sites and then bill them and pay GoDaddy and then manage all that in between. So, a white label type of,
I don't know,
approach.
Jacob, has there been discussion related to
Yeah, so I was going to ask Adam, I thought that managed WordPress was available through the reseller platform.
It is, yeah. So,
but it's not integrated with the API yet, which we will do, which makes it more flexible. So you can do that, and it's not as flexible as it would be with the API.
that falls under the more tools for pros on the previous slide.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
So I was thinking about auto updates and you guys pushing out updates for WP Core, and I can't remember if you do plugin updates. as well?
Sometimes we do plugin updates if it's large enough and it's a big enough vulnerability.
But you don't handle any like plugin updates short of that. And
No.
how has your experience been with pushing out core updates, like forcing core updates on sites?
It's been generally good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. We do security releases immediately at the same day. We've been doing major core releases that are security related soon, but we're thinking about waiting based on, because they're not as urgent, right? And eventually you're able to kind of push them yourself when you want. Right now it takes a couple days, maybe like 2 days to do hundreds of thousands of sites, but some of the things we're working on will make it like a lot faster. So we're kind of, just as you kind of scale, like it takes longer and longer, right?
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, because I know that's a struggle that any managed company goes through, is reverting a site that maybe something broke on, or you know, how many support tickets you get right around the time the major release comes out.
Yeah, and then we're actually working with more pros that are kind of figure out, because we don't want to like wait for client sites, right? So if you have complaints or something, we're free to let us know. We're trying to make it more flexible in the future. Maybe we give you, we do it automatically in like a week, but you can do it immediately whenever you want. And that's actually, we can talk about that too.
And I know one of the things that I talked about them a little bit about is within the pro program, getting notified and being able to see when updates have been applied to your client sites. So they call up, hey, my site's broken, or potentially you already know because we've got monitoring in place. You understand what happened, so you can go in and remediate it or get help from us. So that's a big thing, like having the knowledge that something was done.
Yeah.
Makes it a lot easier to fix.
So you guys do have monitoring installed where you just push an update, it knows immediately if it dies, sends an email to somebody?
So right now it will notify the dev team to go, hey, these sites didn't update properly. They had an issue. And then what we do, it's a semi-manual process right now. We will go in and we will go look at them. And most of the time, it's in like the dozens. It's not very many given the number of sites that we have. WordPress is actually really great about backwards compatibility. So right now it's kind of like we do some automated remediation where we can, and then the ones where that doesn't work too, we go, okay, like let's go in and look at this and try and figure out what's actually going on or what actually happened. Like let's go in and see if there's a lesson we can learn. Yeah.
How are you guys communicating also like new functionality comes on? Like you mentioned the staging. I just found out, I just noticed in mine, maybe nothing happened or something.
Obviously not well. It's tough, right? Like we send emails to people sometimes, but our emails get a sub 10% read rate. Like read rate, not even response rate. Like just people don't read that stuff. It's tough. So we've had discussions around how do we notify people when we make those changes, and there's an ongoing discussion of that. Is that something we want to put like in the admin? So when you log in, we're like, hey, here's the new latest cool thing for your WordPress. Go check it out. We don't really have a great solution for that yet.
Different question. How would you want to be notified?
Yeah, if you've got ideas, I'd love to hear them.
I honestly think you did it the way in the admin, because you updates your new WordPress, they tell you all the new features that's in it, so you kind of can read through there.
Right.
And that's when it's relevant to you when you're in the site. It doesn't matter if I'm at home, you know, going to go to bed.
Yeah, for like that's definitely good, but like as a WordPress user, I used it for years, like hey, we'll mess with my WordPress. So we want to put all this stuff on your dashboard, so it's kind of a fine line there, but we'll probably do the features like new pro features. We'll kind of give we'll let pros know through that pro channel, through our small business users, kind of let them know based on who's relevant.
Yeah,
we're definitely working on that.
We're a little gun shy about changing the admin too much after Sidekick. So
yeah, that's actually one of the more to come.
I was gonna say by email, I was on the cloud services like beta and whatever, and everything would just go straight to my promotional inbox where I read maybe once a week. So
right.
It's on API changes all the time.
Right. Yeah, and yeah, it's a challenge. I don't know that we've solved it. Even just, I don't think any team has solved it. I don't know that we've solved it as a company. It's hard.
What's like one of the things from our past, like we used to send out marketing emails all the time.
Right.
So we get flagged for spam. We have to deal with all the canned spam stuff, and it's like we're trying to send out notices to members of this program, and we just can't even get it out there. Right. It's just this massive challenge. That's why I'm curious, like, what channels you want stuff to come through so that it gets to you in format you actually care about.
Option on the dashboard, like, feed is great, probably.
Yeah, even if it's just an optional widget you can turn on.
Yeah.
Right.
Because then you can just guide users
Yeah,
and say
but like
you
a
can
little
go turn
thing
it
in the
on.
corner says dismiss or don't ever show me this again.
Right.
If it wants it doesn't look good. no
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, we figured that one out with the little feedback widget too, because that one just stayed there forever until we
The thing is,
built that.
everybody wants different things too. Yeah. So
Right.
it's just like, we're trying. Yeah.
Do you guys have plans for like profiling and stuff like that? So like if you do have sites that, you know, like, you can't necessarily get right in to see how many database hits or processing time or something like that, like to be able to see like profiling on requests or things like that.
We built P3, which could be used for that. We're going to have our eye on new API-based features in the future to help with troubleshooting and stuff. So more to come there, but I'd say P3, if you haven't tried to check it out.
Yeah, I think he just wants to know more about like, are you looking just for like over time, or are you just looking for like, I want to know what my
Like
site's
if we have
doing right now?
problem sites, you know, and we're trying to figure out where the problems are.
Yeah, P3, there's a few profiling plugins that are really, really good. It doesn't make a ton of sense for us to go in and reinvent that wheel. There's already solutions for it. And P3 was one that we wrote, our Kurt Payne wrote as part of GoDaddy a while back. But there's a lot of really great profiling plugins out there already that you can use that'll give you that insight.
That one doesn't store the data. It doesn't store the snapshot.
It's like that.
That's on that
that
page,
load.
yeah.
Right.
That page load.
It works great for debugging, but it's not as terrible. All you're going to do is just control, copy, and
Good old Word document.
Nice. Great. Anything else? All right. Well, I'm Adam. You know where to find me if you need me. async@godaddy.com.
Jake at GoDaddy.
Yeah.
Gmail's a good edit.
Yeah. Thanks for your time.